Hi, Stephanie. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. We have great weather here in El Paso today, so enjoying
Oh,
that.
that's great. Well, it's snowing here in Winnipeg, so I'm very jealous of you.
I think we're supposed to be up to about 87 on Sunday, so it's definitely
Oh,
different than from where you are.
wow. Wow. Well, I wish, one day I'll have to make a move down there.
Definitely.
But for starters, I was wondering if you could tell listeners who you are and what you're currently doing in your role for those of you who aren't familiar.
Sure. So my name is Stephanie Carrasco. I'm the coordinator for advanced academics here in the Socorro Independent School District. We are located in El Paso, Texas, known as the Sun City. And I handle our academic events for the district. So items like UIL academics, academic decathalon, destination imagination, and our district robotics competition. So um, I've been doing that now for, I guess this is my fourth year doing this.
4 years. Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. And I heard recently that you held ROBOCOM 7.0. Now, I was wondering if you could explain how that went and what exactly that looked like for students this year, because I know that that's your seventh year doing it. And yeah, was there any reception, any feedback off the event?
Sure. So our district, like as you mentioned, 7 years of doing a robotics competition, and we're moving ahead and making our plans, and all of a sudden we're blindsided as everybody else was with the pandemic, and
Yeah.
we were forced with, we were faced with some tough decisions. Do we cancel the situation? Do we cancel our events? Or do we try and make changes? And so after much discussion and some investigation, we identified Cogmation as a potential partner for running our robotics competition. And we were really excited because our current event uses the EV3 robots. We've been working with our university here in town, University of Texas at El Paso, and we collaborate with them as part of First Lego League. So we were looking for something that was going to kind of emulate that whole process. And we were hoping to maybe do a hybrid, but the more we looked into it and the worse the situation got, we realized that we were going to need to go to an entirely virtual event. And that's what we were able to do. So we worked with Virtual Robotics Toolkit for our programming. And then we worked with Robot Virtual Games to hold our event. And our kids had a great time. The focus was on the programming. We still had our normal innovation project that we would have done for our first Lego League, but we also, for programming, had an opportunity for every one of our students that was involved. They were able to program, and that's not typically the way things roll out. In a traditional year, you might have one or two, maybe three kids that focus on programming the hands-on robot, but a lot of times they kind of take roles, and then they'll differentiate between the presentation or the innovation project and the programming side. And working with Cogmation, we were able to make the program available to every one of our students, and they were able to really program, learn more about programming, and then be able to showcase what they did with through the robotics competition. And so we had our contest in mid-February. We got together on two separate days, and all of our teams were able to show what they had done as far as programming was concerned on a virtual platform. We use Teams in our district, and so the team would share their screen and run their program, and we had an opportunity to see how successful some of our teams were. We chose to do an event called the Chimney, and so we did have a team that was able to complete the project completely. And then not only do that, but on the second day of the competition, they bested their best time. And so they were really excited, and we were excited for them, and it gave us a chance to celebrate. The feedback that I received was that teams were very thankful. They thought, there's no way we're going to do this. We're going to have to cancel and wait for next year. And so the fact that we were able to come together and run a virtual event, teams were really excited. They kept telling me, this is hard. It's like, well, it is hard, but that's what makes it special. is that there was a lot of learning that was involved, and then to see the success that these students had was just very, very rewarding.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm so glad that, the product helped you run it smoothly and let, let the tradition carry on. Did anything surprise you about this shift to virtual? Anything that maybe you didn't expect? What did it feel like for you as a teacher, getting involved virtually this year?
That's a tough question. There were a lot of things that were different. But there were some things that were the same issues that students or that teachers have, coaches have, is if they're not familiar with the program, they have to learn that alongside the student. I think what some coaches were surprised about is how quickly there were students that were able to navigate the program, the software, the programming itself, the coding. Whereas the teacher may have been hesitant, the students just grabbed on and said, okay, let me figure this out, and ran with it. And even in showing us, we did a kind of a scrimmage run. We had students that were like, they changed the view, and we're like, hey, how'd you do that? And they're like, oh, I just did this, this, this. And they were able to tell us right away. And it was something that the teacher hadn't shown them. It was just through trial and error and working through the program, and they were able to figure things out much easier than sometimes our coaches were. So that was a little bit different. I think there was still that sense that teachers wanted to be directing everything, line by line. And because students were able to work on this on their own, because every computer had the program loaded onto it, students were able to go home and in their downtime, they could work on the programming. And I think that was a shift for our coaches as well, because they're used to having to rely on team meetings to get anything accomplished. And so that was a little bit of a shift also. And that was, again, something that Virtual Robotic Toolkit allowed our students to do, because they weren't tied to being in the building with the teacher at all times.
Wow, wow. Well, that's great. That's great. I, was reading about SISD, and I think that the district as a whole, it's amazing. I mean, I've never really seen so many teachers get involved and be as passionate about their mission as you guys are. And I was reading, you have a mission that to make students college and career ready for a global high-tech society. So I was curious, what does this mean for you, and what do you think is the best way to achieve this goal?
You like to ask those hard questions. We are, as a district, we are Team SISD. You can kind of see that from our website all the way down through. Our students are very much supporters of our district. And I think that might be unusual to some people. How do you take pride in your school district? Pride in your school I've heard of, but pride in your school district. And I think there is a lot of pride in that. But one of the reasons that we have that is because we do treat these students as if they were our own children. That's a motto or a mantra for our superintendent, is that we treat them as our own. So whatever we would want for our own students, for our own children, is what we would want for our students.
Right.
And in thinking about that, it's like, well, where do I want my kids to go after this? After they finish with their elementary, middle school, high school career, what do I want next? And as a parent, I want my child to be prepared to walk out that door after graduation to say, okay, either I'm going to go and work, I'm going to step into the career world, or I'm going to go ahead and go to college and then be prepared. But either way, we want them to be prepared. And so we have many career-driven programs within our district, as well as robust advanced academics programs. Our Career and Technologies department, we have welding, we have automotive, we have computer graphics and technology. We have students that are walking out with a certificate to be a stylist or a nail technician. We have wonderful chef programs where our students cook and cater for events within the district. Those are opportunities that I think I'm a little bit jealous. When I was in school, I think we had band and we had music, and vocational was kind of looked down upon. That's not the way we are now. In this district, we really look at STEM opportunities, and some of those opportunities include what would have been termed as vocational programs before. And now we understand that there's this need for all students to find an interest, and it may be that they're looking for something that's that hands-on certified position that requires a different kind of training. And so we look at opportunities for our students within those technical trades, or within opportunities to advance through the educational system into a college career, a college pathway. We have a wonderful relationship with our military in town. El Paso has Fort Bliss is in our city, and so we have a lot of students that are also military based, and so we have a great connection with the military in our town as well, and we foster all of those relationships to really find ways that we can support all the students in our district. We talk about having endless opportunities and seizing our opportunity. And those are, it may seem cliche or may seem like a catchphrase, but we live those every day, and we try and encourage our 47,000 plus students to aim for success. And we find that it starts in elementary. So if we really develop strength in elementary, it stays with our kids all the way through high school. And we talk about, what are you going to do after you graduate? What are you going to do? Not if you graduate, but when you graduate, what's your path? What do you want to do next? And having that constantly surround students, I think really builds an environment that it's a culture of expectation. We expect our students to be successful, and then in turn, they are. And so
Right.
we really, I think that's been a plus for our district. And across the state, we do see that we're, having success, not just in our area, but when we compare ourselves to other areas of the state, we also shine. And so it's something to be proud of.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'm glad to hear that that those students are rising to the occasion and able to meet that bar. It sounds like you have a lot of a lot of talent in that district. Is there anything that you as a teacher, as a parent even, are learning from these students? Are you like you see them go about their education, you see them taking all these opportunities. What do you learn from them?
I learn from our students all the time. They are tenacious. They are definitely driven by technology. And I think that in turn pushes us to be also just as involved with technology. I learned that they enjoy teamwork, and sometimes they don't have opportunities to really work as a team. We do project-based learning. We do projects in the classroom. We give them opportunities, but in a situation where you have an end goal, the teamwork is a little bit different. Let's say in your programming, we're striving to have students really develop those teamworking skills, because they're going to have to use those once they leave the school situation. I can't think of a place here in my career where I haven't been part of a team. And so getting those skills early and refining those skills is important. But also understanding that the students do enjoy being part of a team, I think, is something that we need to know, so that we have an understanding of how we can teach them better. I think that we learn that students learn well from games. Sometimes it's like, oh, well, they're just playing. We have to stop and think, no, they're really learning while they're playing. They're learning how to follow the rules. They're learning how to work with one another. They're learning strategies and how to overcome strange situations. And so all of those are skills that can be learned through gameplay. And so I think that that's one of the things that we find important about ROBOCOM. or any of the competitions that I run, there is that competition factor to it that also pushes the students to be successful because they want to win.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Sometimes the desire to win just they learn without even thinking, right? They just want to beat their
Right.
friends, and then they end up learning something by accident.
Right. And then they teach others, which I think is great because we're definitely not a group that says, oh no, I'm not going to share with you. If I learn something, I'm like, hey, that was really cool. We're going to turn around and share it with the other teams. And that's been something also that's very important. That was kind of when we worked with First Lego League, that's one of their ideals is competition through cooperation. And so because our teams have been involved with that before, it was a natural fit for them to call up and say, hey, I'm having trouble learning this. Have you guys, I don't know, have you been successful? Have you been able to figure it out? And then the coaches will share, the students will share. Being on teams, it's been amazing because it's easy enough to say, okay, you know what, call in and I'll show you on my screen what we've been doing. And that's something that wasn't natural before. It would be like, well, when can you come to my school? So I can show you. This whole idea of, having to meet at somebody's location has become foreign, and it's so easy for any of us. I constantly tell my people, my coaches that I'm working with, hey, call me and I'll show you on the screen. Whereas before it would have been like, okay, so on your screen, do you see this? Okay, no. It's over up here in the left, and you're trying to visualize their screen so you can walk them through. And now it's just as easy as, hey, call me, I'll share, and I can show you. Or the flip side is you share your screen and I'll walk you through it. And so the person has the ability to do while I watch what they're doing. And I don't have to physically go to their school anymore. So while there are disadvantages to being in a pandemic and being in the situation that we've been in, there have been a lot of opportunities to learn and grow, and there have been some advantages that I can even see us taking away and continuing from this point forward, because we've had to learn so quickly how to connect outside of our own office space.
Right. Well, you touched on what I was just going to ask next. I was going to ask if you thought that these were going to carry on in the next few years, these changes to virtual. But I'm really happy to hear that you've been making that transition easily, because it's been a challenge even for a young person like myself who grew up with technology. I feel
Right.
like it's hard on everyone. I was curious, you in your career, you assess training programs, and you would see if these training programs in the El Paso district were I guess up to standard.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about that part of your career, and maybe even elaborate on how you would assess these programs and how you would know if a course or a program was ready for kids to start learning.
As far as looking at different programs, part of what I do is looking to see what's out there, talking to people in the industry to see what might fit with our programs. And so in looking at a program, I look to see is, do we have a robust support department? Do we have access to people so that we can talk face to face or one-on-one rather than just having an email contact or a chat function that's not necessarily run by a person. Having a personal touch can be really important for some of these programs. Additionally, we look for something that has a track record. Do I see good reviews on the internet? Is this a company that's been in business for several years? Each of those pieces goes into looking. And then a lot of it comes from, I create my own accounts all over the place so that I can test them and try them. And so having a trial version of a software program is really important, because if I can't actually see it, touch it, manipulate it, and try and work it through, then I can't really give, I guess, my stamp of approval for it, because I can't confidently go to a teacher and say, this works. So when I was in the classroom or when I was working with teachers in the classroom, I did a lot of that. I'd create an account, I'd try something out, I'd test it with, my daughter was a guinea pig often. Here, try this, see if it works for you. What do you think of it? And we'd get that feedback. And then I usually start with a small committee and then showcase it to them and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? What are the questions that you have? Do you find it to be easy to work with? Do you like the look of it? And those features then allow me to say, okay, now to a broader audience, hey, I think this is going to work. Let's give it a shot, and we can roll it out from there. And then I look for feedback. Where are we having problems? Are we getting lag on the computer all the time? Is it freezing up the system, or are we able to navigate comfortably and continue moving forward? And so any system I'm looking at, whether it be a piece of spelling software or in this case the robotics software, I looked at several companies before I finally decided on this is the one that we're going to use. And we are already talking about what will next year look like. And we are considering moving again, even though it looks like we'll be able to move back to a face-to-face situation in smaller groups. We're looking at continuing with Virtual Robotics Toolkit for another year because it was so well received that we think that this might be something that supports our students, their coding skills, their programming skills into the high school level. And so right now, our kids are 4th through 8th grade students, and we're looking to see is how can we best support their skills so that they can move, we call it vertically, into something that's similar but into the high school path and have skills that support them. Is moving back to First Lego League the best route because they get a hands-on experience with building the physical robot, or are the coding skills more important and they're going to carry that further into their high school events? Mm-hmm. So after some discussion with my high school teachers, we'll be looking to see which way we're going to move. But to say that we would want to keep a virtual platform, even though we're not isolated anymore, I think that speaks volumes about working with Virtual Robotics Toolkits and Cognition.
Oh, I think it certainly does as well. And yeah, I'm really glad to hear that it was so well received. Moving forward in the next 10 years, even outside of education and in the technology space, I know that you're very involved in technology. What do you see, what do you see happening in the next 10 years or so in terms of technology advancements, changes to the educational system? What do you predict?
I predict that a lot of the skills that were developed this year will stay. There was a lot of, I want to say, lip service. Teachers would say, yeah, I'm using technology. And now they find out like, oh, now I'm really using technology. I could say, oh, I would share, tell the kids, okay, here's a video. Go watch the video. But now it's completely different because now not only do students maybe watch the video, but now I've embedded quiz questions or assessment questions into the video. And now students are responding to me completely through the computer and setting up, blogs or responses. They're having discussions or and so we're doing this in a completely different fashion that now when we leave this realm, I think that we'll see a lot more of those kind of assignments continue through the system. Mm-hmm. All of our students now have a device. We didn't have that going into this. We were strong. We had a lot of devices on campuses, but to say that we were a one-to-one district, we weren't. So this ushered in a new era because now after this, all of our students will have a device. So when a teacher says, we're going to do this activity and it's through this software package, every student can now pull up their device and work with it. Whereas in the past, it was like, oh, we have 3 computers in the classroom, and how do you share those? And let's make it a station and we'll rotate around. This changed now, and so we hope that we'll be able to continue with every student having a device, because it does open up different avenues of instruction that weren't available before. Where will this take us? 10 years from now, I think that there will still be face-to-face teachers, but I do see that the role of the teacher may change a little bit more. I think that there will be more of the self-driven lesson for students, and the teacher will be more of a facilitator to make sure that the student's not having problems or questions. I think that will mean that the teacher has to address a wide variety of topics, because if students are progressing at their own pace now, it means that the teacher has to be prepared to address a question at any level across the entire curriculum. So you might have one student who's just beginning with this topic, and one student who's already 4 or 5 weeks into the topic, and you need to be ready to say, okay, I can answer questions from either side. And that will be important for the students, but as well as the teacher, to make sure that they're prepared in a different way. Right now, you have teachers that say, okay, I'm preparing a lesson for today, and all 35 of my students are going to be on the same lesson at the same time. I think that will change. It means that we will have to build those lessons and curriculum further out so that students can go through the paces, or that we will have to find curriculum programs that already have those lessons integrated that will allow students to move further, faster, so that they can continue on at their own pace. So I think that there will be some changes. It also depends on what our different states look at as far as assessment is concerned. Right now, assessment kind of puts you at the point where you all have to be on the same page at a certain point to take the assessment. And so if that doesn't change, then it kind of holds people back because they can't move faster than that. So, but
Yeah,
I
those are
think there
some
will be
fantastic
changes.
points.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all great points, and I agree with you. Having education more personalized, where one student can be 3 chapters ahead and one can be maybe 1 behind. I think that's so important. I mean, when I was in school, I had some teachers who would say maybe a student was working ahead in the textbook and say, ask a question to the teacher, and the teacher would say, oh, you're too far ahead. Ask me
We're
next
not
week
there
when we're
yet. Yeah.
exactly. And it's tough for kids when they have to be held back like that.
Right.
I want to be respectful of your schedule and your time. So I'll just ask you one more question. Is there any message that you would like to get out to students, teachers, anything like that? If you could, speak to the world or speak to the educational community just by speaking it aloud now, what would that be?
To hang in there. I think that that's something that we've heard before, but it's been a tough year for everyone. I think just that there's been a lot of bumps and bruises and hurt feelings, but I think that we just need to hang in there. Things are going to get better. And I think that if we try and look for the silver linings, sometimes it's hard. Our kids have been touched in a way that we've never seen before. And our teachers aren't any different. They have their own families and they've been struggling on their own. So I think it's important that everybody needs to have patience with one another, and we'll come out the other side, and we're going to come out the other side richer. And I think that that's what we need to keep in mind. As far as a message would be to be determined, look for solutions and don't give up. And those, I think, are all ways of looking, not just for teachers, but for students as well. Be determined and don't give up. And in the end, our education will be enriched because we continue to look for the next level. We continue to move ourselves forward. Even though we may find difficulty right now, if we don't give up, we're going to keep moving on, and we're going to come out better in the end.
I think that's a great message. That's a really, really great message. Are there any social media links that you'd like to share? Anything that you'd like to, where can people get a hold of you?
I am on Twitter. I can send you my Twitter link.
Okay.
Because I don't remember what it is right now, but I can send that to you.
For sure.
Really, that's the best way. If anybody wanted to get in touch with me, it is through Twitter. I sent you a link for an article that was written by our PR department. So I think that is a nice article that kind of showcases what ROBOCOM was and our winners for the event. So that would be nice. But other than that, I think it's just me.
Great. Great. Okay. Well, I will include those in the show notes afterwards. Yeah. Thank you so much again for coming onto the podcast and for speaking to listeners.